Nice. See, Dave, before we went live, said that that was the best bit of these sessions. So, like, there we go. It's such an amazing video. It just sets the vibe right every time. And oh my God, the comments are coming in already. So, hello to everyone that's tuning in today. We've got Aberdeenshire. We've got a couple from Scotland, actually. Sussex, places, Perpignan. Wow, awesome. It's so wicked to have you here. Hello and welcome to the Marketing Meetup. I'm Joe, and thank you all for being here. You're doing a wonderful job already so far of popping in the chat feature where you're watching from. So thank you all for doing that. But if you haven't done it already, do drop where you're watching from. And I can't emphasize this enough. Don't forget to see that little thing that says two panelists. Switch that to panelists and attendees. That means that everyone can see your message, not just us on your screen right now. Every session I start it in the same way, by saying 3 points that I think if we do this together, then today's session will be good fun. So the first point that I'd really love to hit today is that we walk away from today's session having learned something new or had our perspective changed on what is today about LinkedIn. Secondly, that chat feature, which is amazing, by the way, it stays alive as it is right now. So we've got Newmarket, Manchester, Malaysia, Gloucester, Birmingham, Cornwall. Thank you all so much. And South Africa is ridiculous. Nigeria, blimey. Please keep that chat feature alive, because right now, as much as Dave, Joe, Eddie and I will be doing our best to make the session the best hour possible for you, then the other half of this is that it's a real team effort between us and you to make this session amazing. And then the third thing is that you share today's session. And really, I want to start off today by just saying thank you to everyone who has taken the time to share about the Marketing Meetup. It is here to support you, help you become a better marketer. And the fact that everyone has taken the time to share about us has helped us grow, but hopefully been really, really useful for a bunch of marketers around the world too. So thank you all so, so much. Right, with those 3 points outlined, let's move on to introducing today's speakers. And today I'm thrilled to tiny little pieces to be sharing your screens with three people who have my ultimate respect and admiration. Dave Harland, the Wordman, Eddie Shleyner of Very Good Copy, and Joe Watson of A Good Write-Up. The three of these represent some of the best copywriters that I'm aware of, but are also completely lovely human beings. Something else that they all have in common is that they smash LinkedIn to tiny, tiny little pieces, which I suspect has a big impact on their businesses too. But more on that very, very soon. I've asked them to speak with the community today because I don't want them to give advice. I want them to share experiences and opinions, really. The reason why that's important is that while LinkedIn is very simply just a tactic, and should be therefore treated with the same reservation of every other marketing tactic, in that it's not going to be right for everyone, there is a real opportunity there. And the opportunity there right now is that the reach, organic reach, is really, really strong, which presents an opportunity for loads of marketers out there. With that in mind, it's something that piques a lot of people's curiosity, but I don't think it's something that a lot of us master or necessarily know how to approach. So, speaking with these three people today, hopefully we'll learn a little bit about that. Today is a Q&A only session, which means that you can get your questions into the Q&A feature, which is found down below by wiggling your mouse and dropping your questions right there. You can use the Q&A for questions and the chat feature just to say hello and discuss everything out there too. Finally, before we get going proper, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Those of you who are members of the Marketing Meetup community and have been for a long time will be aware that the way that we run these sessions is that our sponsors support us and have done for a long time. Without them, we won't be able to do what we do. So it's only appropriate to say thank you every week. And this week, our featured sponsor is Brand Recruitment, who have been with us since day one. So big thank you to Brand Recruitment. They are people that put a good face on recruitment. They've honestly been incredible. And also a big thank you to Geosk, Impression, Content Cow, Pitch, Fiverr, Redgate, Cambridge Martin College, Gravity Global, and Third Light. My one ask is that if you enjoy today's session, please take a moment to thank them. You cannot overestimate the power of a thank you. So that's my introduction over. So let's get going. And because there's no presentation today, I actually open up with a question. And I reckon I'm going to pick on Mr. Harland first. So Dave, pressure's on, mate. What is it that you enjoy about LinkedIn and what keeps you posting?
For me, LinkedIn, it's like a big game and it never ends. And the more you play it, the more of a buzz you get from it. And for a writer, I think the fact that you can get instant feedback from whatever you put out there, it's like the best testing platform for what you want to create. So you'll put stuff out there. If it gets 20 likes within the first 5 minutes, the algorithm picks it up and it's got a potential to catch fire. Even if it doesn't do too well, it's still a place where you're putting content out there. So it's a place where you can kind of build up a collection of your written work and link back to it from other places, which we'll get onto a little bit later in terms of newsletters and blogs and whatnot. So you can connect it to all your other marketing channels. And it's not only the place where I can kind of share my own ideas and my thoughts and ways of thinking and ways of seeing copy and marketing, but I also get loads of ideas from it. So it's, I can ask questions and the feedback I'll get will kind of spark other ideas as well. So it's kind of self-fulfilling as well. So yeah,
Nice.
long-winded answer, but
No, I love that, mate. I think it's so important. There's Eva says here that she totally agrees. She lives LinkedIn and met so many people through the platform, and that testing thing can't be underestimated. We should definitely look back on that a little bit later. Although, if anyone has any questions, I can actually see that there's already 18 open questions. So, folks, if you want to ask anything more about that, do get that in the Q&A. How about you, Joe? I'd love to hear about you because you use it in such a personal way. It's really, really lovely.
So what you mean by that, Joe, is that I never post anything professional. Very personal way. Yeah, you worded that perfectly there. I just enjoy it for Dave's posts. I'm just there for Dave mainly. But I love his posts because he makes me laugh. And that's what I'm there for. I'm there for a bit of a laugh. Yes, it is a great place, as Dave said, to showcase your written content and to say, well, look, I'm a writer. You might want to hire me as a writer. Here's my writing that you can see for free. So that's brilliant. But I just want to have a bit of a laugh with it. And I like the idea that I might make other people laugh and give them something to smile about. And I do get quite a lot of messages from people on there saying that it was really nice to see my stuff because it was, a bit different to what you might expect on a platform like LinkedIn. So for me, it's just about kind of making people feel good. But every now and then I do enjoy the odd pissing off of certain people because I think you do just have to polarize to an extent to show that you're really making an impact. I know that's something we discussed before we all came on the Zoom, but yeah, it is good to get some people really riled at you because then that just spurs me on for future content, really.
I love this, Joe, because you started from a place of like joy and joyfulness and making people smile, and then you've just ended up like
it's a spiral.
Yeah, I love that though, and there's a lovely chat message here from Gemma who says, "I'm here for you, Joe," which I love. I think we all are. Absolutely love that. Oh, and by the way, I do need to mention because I didn't in the introduction that if you're not up for swearing today, then today's probably not the best session in the world for you. So that's your choice.
Sorry.
And how about you, Eddie? Because again, you use it in quite a different way to both Dave and Joe.
Yeah, no, I think Joe nailed it. I'm here for Dave. That's all I want. No, Dave's great, but I think a big part of it is everybody's attitude on LinkedIn. Like, people are generally nice and supportive and in earnest are there to learn and meet people and generally become better. So yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy the community on LinkedIn more than say on like a Reddit. where everybody is anonymous and motivations vary generally. Like some people are there to learn and then, and be entertained, but then other people are there to troll and put you down. And I think as a creator, you really need a lot of support from the community you post on. So, the LinkedIn community, at least for me, has been, incredibly supportive. And so I appreciate all of that. I think another piece is probably the format. Up until recently, LinkedIn gave you 1,300 characters to work with in each post. And I thought that was a really nice sweet spot, for the type of content I like to write. Like it wasn't too short, wasn't too long, kind of put you in a box, which at least for me is very helpful.
Interesting. And on that point, actually, Eddie, I'd love to pick up on that in a box point about creativity in a box, because I feel like that guardrails thing is quite important. And you mentioned that about the 1,300 characters. Do you find that those sort of like confines is useful for your creative process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I bet you Joe and Dave will say the same thing. Like, there's nothing scarier than having like unlimited possibilities, unlimited, directions to go in with your content. Generally for me, like when I put myself in a box on LinkedIn or anywhere else that I'm writing, I have like a formula that I follow with variables, so it usually boils down to three things. It's like there's a story or an anecdote, and then there's a lesson, a principle or a technique, something around copywriting or marketing or creativity or whatever I'm trying to teach in that post. And then there's that word count, so now it's like 3,000 characters, I guess, on LinkedIn. It used to be 1,300, but basically the point is to take that anecdote and try to connect it to that lesson. So many characters, 3,000, 1,300, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, you cut a lot of options off, and that makes it easier to write and finish. Makes it easier to know when you're done, stuff like that.
I love that. Thank you for that. That's an amazing quote to come out right from the beginning, actually, that there's nothing scarier than unlimited possibilities. And I think that really speaks true probably to a lot of the experiences of people watching in today as well, which is like when you're sat there with that sort of like empty box and it says post here, and you're like, what? and that's scary, right? That's big, and so actually there's a format thing there, and actually I really love this suggested sort of formats and points that you're trying to hit there as well, Eddie. But I think there's also a strategic thing here, which is like, why are we posting? Why are we trying to go on LinkedIn? So maybe, Joe, I'd be interested for you here. From a strategic point of view, do you go into posting on LinkedIn with a clear goal in mind? Does that give you focus, or is it different for you?
Short answer, no. Long answer, what do you mean by strategy? Because I don't have one. I'm just listening to like Eddie saying, I've got these anecdotes and stories and a lesson I want to share. And that's the beautiful thing about Eddie's content. You're going to learn something from him. You're not going to learn anything from me. And I would that most people on this call who already know who I am know that they don't come to my LinkedIn profile to learn something. I just post if I've got something in my head, and that can sometimes lead to creative genius that gets me new clients, which is brilliant. Someone will say, I saw your post, it was fantastic. It was refreshing, whatever, that's amazing. Every now and then it leads to halfway towards career suicide, where even I sit there and think, I can't believe I wrote that. There's absolutely no strategy for me. And so my strategy for everyone on this call would be, don't just do what I do and instead pay attention to Joe, Dave, and Eddie instead.
No, not at all, Joe. I think you make a great point here, though, that it's as much as we sort of speak about strategy as marketers, then actually, what you're saying here is that you're just being you. And there's a lot of power in that. And I think there's a lot of power in just sort of being yourself and actually saying, look, here you go. Nicola says, Joe's content always feels like a palate cleanser amongst the overtly corporate posts. And actually back to your original point about sort of like either looking to piss people off or, bring a bit of joy. Actually, what you're doing is exactly that. And precisely to this point of also at the beginning, we were saying if you're not polarizing people, then you're not really saying anything at all. Then actually what you're doing there is that. So maybe, you know, as much as you're not giving yourself the credit you deserve, there's probably quite a lot here, which is about like, you know, just being yourself.
I'll
And
take it, Joe. Thank you.
I think it's really important. You know, there's a lovely comment here. I love talking about personal stories on LinkedIn and leaving a little takeaway or a share. And I think that's really, really important. So don't do yourself down like that, because honestly, I think this authenticity is amazing. As much as you're relieving people by saying my strategy is I have no strategy. How about you, Dave and Eddie? Dave first, maybe. Do you go in with a strategic point of view, or are you more interested, more sort of in the spur of the moment, like Joe?
Yeah, I'm probably in the middle between Eddie and Joe in the fact that, you know, whereas Eddie starts off with either a story or a lesson, I'll kind of be thinking how I want the audience to react. So it's usually I want to raise a smile or make them laugh. That'll be one. I'll go really heavy on the kind of daft, the funny stuff. Other times I will be kind of teaching something, so it will be a lesson, or I want them to go away thinking, wow, he's made that look really easy. He knows what he's talking about, and they get it straight away. Or I just want to make people think, what the fuck's going on here? This is like, where's he going with this? And that's just intrigue. And I think what I try and do is say a few times, I try and put my money where my mouth is in terms of the articles that I write. Whenever I'm kind of talking about this is why you should do this, I try and do it within the posts. If I'm talking about writing an intriguing line, my opening line will make people think, I've got to read this. I've got to read the end of this. I've got to, you know, click that read more and go further in. And by the time they get to the end, I've kind of done you know, it's again self-fulfilling, isn't it? I've demonstrated what I'm kind of showing. So I quite like doing that as a strategy. But in terms of coming up with ideas, no real plan. I mean, I get ideas from anywhere. It could be, you know, watching the Wimbledon yesterday, something mad, someone shouted out from the crowd, not that I was watching Wimbledon and have a story prepped. But yeah, anything really, ideas, stuff I'm reading, mad stuff people have said to me. Normally the most obscure, if I can take the most obscure thing that has happened, that has made me stop in my day and go, wow, I know that will stop somebody else, and I can use that in a kind of marketing sense, if you know what I mean.
Spot on, absolutely spot on. How about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I guess from a strategic standpoint, like my goal ultimately is to grow my email list. So, I mean, I think you're following on LinkedIn and Twitter, you know, any other network is really important when it comes to, you know, reach and getting your content out there and everything. But I think owning a list is one of the most important assets for a creator, because it's a direct line to, you know, people that like you and trust you. And it's yours. You know, it's like you're not renting it from a bigger company that could, at any point, for any reason, decide they don't want you on the platform. So, you know, that said, my goal whenever I post on LinkedIn or any network for that matter is to drive people back to verygoodcopy.com, which in and of itself is kind of designed to make people convert. So really, all I have to do is get the right people there. And in theory, people who engage with my stuff on LinkedIn are the right people. So I always have a CTA asking folks to visit the website.
For sure, I love that, and actually, you know, it's really, really interesting to hear this sort of flow, you know, of, you know, post on LinkedIn, get the exposure, move them to the newsletter, you know, and throughout the process providing value, of course, and you know, looking after people and doing it in your own way, but having a broader sort of purpose in mind. I can see that there's 47 open questions, and it's making me a little bit nervous. So what I'm going to suggest is that, folks, if you go through the questions as in the Q&A, and make sure that you give a thumbs up to the ones that you really, really want answering, because there's going to be some really great ones in there, and there's going to be far too many for us to like get through today. So if there's any in there where you're like, yeah, get that answered, then give it a thumbs up in the Q&A feature, because we'll look to prioritize those. I do want to investigate that email listing though, Dave and Eddie in particular, because I know that you guys spend a lot of time on that, and frankly, I think it's genius. Like, and it's not something I've implemented myself, and I kick myself every time I see you guys do it. So Eddie, you're kind of like the king of this. So like, could you speak a little bit about your process and how you go about doing that?
Well, I appreciate that. Dave does a fantastic job of it as well. And
He taught me everything I know. It's all lies.
very gracious about that, but I don't know if it's true. Well, yeah, it's I guess it's all about creating a growth loop between, your posts, your website, and your newsletter. So if you look at any one of my posts on LinkedIn, you'll see that in the first comment, I always ask the reader to visit verygoodcopy.com. And then if they go to VGC, they'll see a lot of opportunities to become newsletter subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole website is basically a tool to get folks into the newsletter. And if they do convert, and if they do become, valued newsletter subscribers, which they are, I value them very much. Each newsletter they receive will contain a link to a LinkedIn post. And the ask will be for them to go and support that post.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say they do that. Let's say they go from the newsletter to LinkedIn and engage with the post. Their engagement begets more engagement, which draws new people who maybe aren't familiar with VGC to the post. And that, the ask then is to go to verygoodcopy.com, where they'll subscribe. And so basically the whole process repeats itself over and over again in a loop.
Nice.
And that's one way I've been using the list, is to create consistent engagement on LinkedIn and Twitter, and like Dave mentioned actually, like earlier, like, if in the first, 5 or 10 minutes a post gets, 20 or 30 likes or however, if you get a lot of engagement really, really early on, the algorithm will kind of spin that up and show it to more people. And so it's one way to kind of hack it. You get people that you already know, like your stuff, leverage their enthusiasm for it onto a post, and then it begets more engagement that way.
Nice. That's amazing. Honestly, like, it's the type of thing which sort of elevates a LinkedIn post from a moment in time to, engagements and conversation, which is in itself an amazing brand building exercise, which is no doubt, and also, as Joe, you've said, and Dave also, you've said, an exercise in making people smile and enjoy themselves and stuff like that. But the fact that you're able to then build in some quote unquote business benefit, and it sounds horrible, but I guess it's true, that you're able to build up that list and then sort of build up that circle. I've seen it in action with the marketing meetup, and I just need to copy what you're doing, frankly. And I think it's amazing. I think it's really, really cool. There's one question that I want to get in before we start taking it from the community, and I can see that's 54, which is about confidence, and having the confidence to post on LinkedIn. And like, Joe, maybe if we start with you, but so I guess this is split up into two parts really. Have you been on like a journey of like becoming more confident to post on LinkedIn, or has it always been quite natural to you? And with that, are there some posts where you still go, oh, I'm not sure whether I want to press that button, but you still do it? And what's the payoff been?
I think it's not that I've become more confident. I think it's that I've become more shameless in what I will put out there, because as soon as I started doing well on LinkedIn, so getting a lot of views, a lot of engagement, a lot of shares and likes, that's when it brings out the people who don't like to see you do well. And so you start getting the haters, as they say. They're few and far between, but they still leave a mark. And I quickly realized that sometimes you could post the most innocent, unassuming of posts, and someone will take the fucking knock with it. Basically, they'll have a go. And if it's not so much the content, it's just an opportunity to have a go at you personally. They've got something about you that they don't like, and they're going to use your post to articulate that point. So I started thinking, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? If I sit there and spend 20 minutes thinking, should I push the button on this? Because I might offend someone, or I might upset someone, or it might come across in the wrong way. That's going to happen anyway. So I stopped caring. And sometimes I will look at something and go, oh God, maybe that didn't come across in the way I thought it would, or maybe I have made a bit of an error there, in which case that's another opportunity for me to go out there and apologize or to put something right and just say, look, I ran with it. It's too late now. It's out there. But then that kind of wins me a lot of favor back, because people will say, all right, well, I like the fact that you kind of owned up to that you disgraced yourself in a post. So I just think, with the whole confidence thing, if you don't do it, someone else will probably post that same thought, that same concept, that same idea, albeit in their words, and everyone will love it and it'll gain them loads of followers, and you'll be sat there going, I wanted to post that. That was mine. I had that thought. That usually happens with Dave, by the way. I keep kind of like fangirling him with this or wherever it is. But yeah, sometimes I'll think I could have posted that. I didn't though, did I? Because I didn't have the idea, or I couldn't take it from start to end the way he does. So I couldn't do what Eddie does. I'm not even going to pretend with that. I'm not that clever. But yeah, I'd hate to think I could have posted something, but something held me back, and then someone else did it and it ended up winning hordes of new followers or clients. I couldn't really live with that. I think I've just got to go for it and see what happens.
That's bloody brilliant. No, honestly, it's such a good attitude. Good on you. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? And Dave, I know that you've had a few of these situations in the past few weeks, and you've handled it in your own way. In fact, there's been a couple of comments in the chat about like how you've handled it. But to speak very briefly about my own experience, quite recently, I've had a few of these as well. Where people have come back on bits and pieces, and it hurts. It really hurts. But it is about that sort of balancing point, isn't it? And sort of saying, you know what, actually, I've gained so much and other people have gained so much from this content that maybe, sometimes there will be that one person and they will find it exactly as you say, Joe. So, good on you. Dave, I mean, on this point, you've done the sterling job quite recently about, taking it to the quote unquote haters, like
haters gonna hate, man.
Haters gonna hate, but I mean, like, out of interest, I mean, what's been your journey and your process on that? Because I guess a lot of folks watching this today will probably be living in fear of this scenario, but not necessarily have lived it yet. I mean, so what was yours?
Look, I get it all the time. You're so outspoken. You say you speak your mind. You seems like you don't care. How can I find my voice? How can I be as create my own voice, my own persona online like you do? And I'm like, look, there's no quick win here. It's like the long game. You've got to write and keep posting and put the graft in, and then your voice will eventually evolve into what feels the most authentic you. And I know, again, I spoke the other week when I was on the market meet of authenticity. It's a bit of a kind of wanky buzzword. Nobody really quite knows what it means. For me, it is just being yourself. And I know that's hard for a lot of people, because there's people out there who say, I've got no personality. I'm quite introverted. I'm a little bit dull. And it's probably easier for me because I have always just been a mess about. See the light in things. I've been freelance now for 5 years. When I was employed, I'd be in business meetings at work and they'd be talking about, synergy, ecosystem solutions. And I'd just be like, come on, let's just, let's keep it real. So yeah, it's definitely an evolution over time, I think, to find that voice. But yeah, I suppose care over time as well, you care less what people think, because what you do, or hopefully if what you do is working and it's bringing the clients in, just do more of it, be more yourself. And I suppose, yeah, I'm probably 95%. 95% of what you see is the real me. There's 5% where I do actually care a little bit, although it doesn't come across, and it doesn't seem like it when I'm just, slating the haters and calling, Colin and Obed for slating me on LinkedIn or whatever in my newsletter. But deep down, there is a little bit of care. I do care about what I do. I never have an off switch. I'm always thinking about new ways to kind of put that stuff out there. So it's never really felt forced. And when that hate does come in, because it is in such small numbers, and the overwhelming majority of people go, I love that sound, you taught me something new, or I've just, I've been pissing myself reading this newsletter this week or whatever. When Colin comes on and goes, I think you're swearing because you haven't got any content. too right, next week, I'm going to call Colin a knobhead in my newsletter after he's unsubscribed. It's just happening. I'm gonna slate him because, you know, what does Colin know? And I don't really hold back anymore in that sense. Not to, you know, not in a dead crude way, more of a kind of let me just make myself laugh, and I hope that all the subscribers and, you know, my mates on LinkedIn and stuff are laughing along with me. And plus I'm freelance now, so there's such a big difference. I know there's probably people watching today who are employed and I've got, you know, really stringent brand guidelines to adhere to when they're writing, and they've got, you know, 14 tiers of sign off above them, and they've got bosses that treat them like the, you know, little kids, and it's tough. I completely get that, but, you know, I've probably got it easy now, and I'm sure Joe and Eddie, because they're doing their own thing, they've got you got a bit more leeway to say what you want and put whatever you want out there in the world without any comeback, apart from the odd Colin. Yeah, sorry if any Collins are watching. His name was actually Colin.
Well, as a point here, then the chat has sort of exploded quite a lot here with support for Collins, as in not support for Collins, support for your standover Colin. And
thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So, you know, and there hasn't actually been a single negative comment on that. So if that's the 99% 1% in action, then actually we've got 100% 0% here. But you know, you're spot on. You're really sure. You're really right. Eddie, if it's okay, I'm going to move on to the next question, because we've got 25 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get them answered from the community too. And this was one that we actually wrote down and discussed before, but it comes from Angie. So Angie says, if you're in a marketing job, besides just posting about the company stuff, what should/could you be posting on LinkedIn to grow your personal brand? Also, what if you're a bit boring and don't have much to say? And for what it's worth, Angie, totally not boring. So like, get rid of that thought. But, you know, let's talk about sort of inspiration for posts. Where do you find your inspiration for posts? And, you know, where do you start on that?
Well, you know, I think I put a lot of myself into my writing. But I typically do so in such a way where I don't let the reader hear my like internal thoughts, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm a big fan of realism, which is just that. Like, the writer never lets you inside the heads of the characters. You know, you're able to see their actions, and you're able to hear their words, but obviously that doesn't tell the reader everything. You know, it gives you certain pieces. You know, she did this. You know, he did that. You know, she said, he said. And it's called realism because, you know, we can't see inside the characters, you know, just like you can't see inside someone's head when, you know, you're speaking to them, or you can't see inside someone's head when, you know, you're observing them. And that adds a lot of tension to a story or to the writing. You know, it leaves a lot open to interpretation. And it leaves a lot of opportunity for the reader to put themselves in the character's situation. So, you know, when I put myself into posts, I'm typically using realism to, you know, to create that sense that you're observing me. But at the same time, I'm giving you ample opportunity not only to, you know, to not only visualize the scene I'm painting, but also to visualize yourself in the scene. So, yeah, maybe I'm, you know, I'm building a story around my own experience, but really the technique helps me make it about you. And so a lot of people mention to me that, you know, it seems like I'm conveying a lot with very little, but really I'm just creating holes for the reader to fill in with their imagination, or like actual events that have occurred in their lives. And in many ways, that's what good copywriting does in general. It just gives the reader or the prospect an opportunity to see themselves in the scenario. So I would say that, you know, if you are concerned that you don't have a lot to talk about in a specific post, or you don't have a, you know, a story to, you know, that you know is captivating or compelling, you know, you can use realism. You can use that technique to, you know, open up the story or open up the post to other people and to help other people see themselves in it.
Wow, that's really interesting. I don't think I've had anyone ever discuss it in that way before. That's like,
well, a good way, you know, if you want to study really, like you know, I'm still a student of it, and I'm still learning it, and you know, it's a process for me. But the true masters are like Raymond Carver, Charles Bukowski to a certain degree, you know, if that's like dirty realism, you know, so that's like Raymond Carver, you know, on acid or something. Hemingway to a degree, you know, these people give very, very little context in their writing. And that context makes the writing punchier, and it helps, like I said, it helps the reader visualize themselves in those situations. So it's a good technique for people that, you know, maybe are a little bit timid about going into too much detail on a story because they're not sure if it's going to land.
That's really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Eddie. Like, I think that will give a lot of people a lot of confidence. And actually, you know, I've never heard, as I say, I've never heard anyone describe it, but sometimes the advice that I find myself giving, you know, as much as I don't like to give advice, is that sort of, oh, you know, just be yourself. But actually, there's a real barrier sometimes, isn't there, to quote unquote being yourself. So that's an insane sort of method and technique or way of thinking about things, which does enable people to start posting, but maybe take themselves out of it a little bit. That's really, really interesting. That's a really great takeaway. Thank you. Joe, like, I think you and I post in a slightly more different way to what Eddie's just described. You know, so quite often I use personal experiences and stuff like that. But I mean, how do you find inspiration for your posts when you sort of sat there with that endless possibilities granted contained by 3,000 characters?
Is that how many we get now? I was thinking about
apparently so. I'm learning too.
I just think it's giving a lot of very boring people a lot of license having that amount of characters. I really do. But usually those boring posts are the ones where someone's trying to sell you something. So if anyone's like, you know, I know Angie asked this question. That doesn't mean, oh my God, if you write a lot, it's going to be boring. If you're writing loads and you're trying to sell to someone, or you're trying to shoehorn in business messages where there aren't any, then you're going to lose people. But if you're writing about something that is personal and something that's important to you, by God, it's going to be important to someone else. So I write a lot about my pets, my husband, and what marital argument we've had that day. One of many. I'll write about my mum and dad who are watching this now, or at least I hope they are. I've not heard anything to say they have or haven't got on the Zoom properly yet. I write about things like that because it's about being relatable. So although, yeah, there'll be a load of people saying, oh, well, it's not my mum and dad, so that story doesn't mean anything to me. I would imagine that the relationships or the exchanges of conversations or the dynamics of family that I talk about, they're going to resonate with some people. So if you're ever sitting there thinking, oh God, well, I'm boring, I don't have anything to say. If there's something that means a lot to you, there will be someone out there to whom it can also resonate. So I say, just give it a go. I posted something ages ago about having kids, and I've become that person who I never thought I'd be, because I generally hate kids. I'm tolerant of mine, and she does make for good content. I will give her that. And she's watching as well, by the way. But I had someone who did comment on my post saying, well, I don't have kids, so this post means nothing to me. I was like, well, why are you here then? Why have you commented? I don't understand people at all. I really don't. But what I do understand is that if you've got something you want to share, you should share it. And even if it just gets one person saying, oh God, yeah, I feel the same about this element of my life, then good, you've made a connection. Rather than just having a follower, you've made a connection with someone. And that's going to be absolutely key on LinkedIn for when you're looking to grow your brand or grow your business somewhere down the line.
I love that. And so actually what both of you explained here is just speaking from experience, you know, and you've given different devices for conveying that, but actually both of you have just explained experiences. Dave, maybe we've got a bunch of open questions, so I want to make sure that we answer some more, but you know, you post on a bunch of random topics. I mean, how about you? Where do you get the inspiration for your stuff, if there's anything extra to add on top of?
Yeah, similar to Joe, really. There's nothing really specific. I've always kind of just got my ears open. So I'm always tuning into, you know, whenever I see something unusual or something someone said or done, that's a little bit out of ordinary, that catches my attention. I go, oh, it kind of sticks in there, and it'll just remain at the back of my mind. Sometimes it'll just ebb away, but other times it'll be like, what have I learned from that? Like, I was on holiday in Wales a couple of weeks ago, and we'd gone out into the town looking for somewhere to eat, and we went past this. There was a couple of people queuing up to get into this gastro pub. I was a doorman, and I said, "All right, mate, have you got any tables for two?" And he's like, "Oh, you're joking, aren't you, mate? No chance. You've got no chance. Fully booked 2 weeks." Like, laughed at us, and I was like, it just landed in my head, and I thought, like, what can I kind of, what's the takeaway from that, really? Because he done me head in by saying that. He could have just gone, "Oh, actually, no, we're fully booked, but you could go down the road." He could have been a little bit helpful. So that was just the inspiration for one little story to go, you know what? If ever people come to you and ask you to do some work or whatever, just level with them. Don't treat them like a knobhead. Just, offer them advice, give them a little extra tip, send them away with a smile, and they might come back further down the line. So that was all it was, just from one thing that a doorman had said to me. And, people that follow me on or get my newsletter and stuff, I'm always talking about daft stuff my mum said to me over the years, and stories about me nans and, my mates, and mad things that I'm in a co-working space here, just mad things that go on in here. I can just kind of tune into how I've kind of perceived it, what that really means. And again, sometimes it'll just be like, well, there's no story in that. And then other times, if you can just kind of attach it to a way you do business, or a little thought that you've had that you think might be helpful to someone, there's an excuse to post. I always say this, and it sounds nuts. If you come to me and say, "Oh, I've got nothing to post about, I've got no ideas," it's like, there's endless ideas everywhere you look, from what you read and what you're watching on the telly, what you're hearing, what people say to you every day. It's like, just write about that. Even if only, like Joe said, even if it's only important to you, and it gets one like, you've put it out there, it's learning, and it's practice, and it's you, back to what we said before, finding that tone, which is the real you, which the more you do it, the more you're going to find that kind of authentic voice, which is certainly what Joe and Eddie have got.
I love it. And there's a lovely comment here from Angela who says, "Totally agree with that, Dave. Little help can make someone's day." And
that's it.
Couldn't agree more. And
I've seen, just while it's still on me, a few people have been asking.
It's still there.
Hey, does it fit on my head though? Does it fit?
That's amazing. I love that. So, like, you won't get this anywhere else, I swear. Incredible. Thank you so much. Brilliant answers. Really appreciate it. Right. There's going to be a lot of people who have no idea what that was about, but let's just leave it hanging. Let's leave the mystery. Yeah. So very quick question from James for you, Eddie, which is, there's only one question that needs answering today. Eddie, the shirt, where do you get it?
This Rick and Morty couture. I think it was from H&M. It was a gift, and
there you go. Well, there you go.
I would probably buy it on my own, but it was a gift. So
yeah, I love it. Rick and Morty shirts and helmets here. Like, it is only, they'll be the only place in the world with a webinar like this. Cool. So I think we should enter a little bit of a quick fire questions, because there's a bunch of them open. So we'll go for the top one from Claire. And by the way, give a thumbs up to any questions that you really want answering, so we can make sure that we get to those. So question from Claire. Claire asks, a lot of people use LinkedIn for multiple purposes these days, personal branding as well as corporate. But for those of us who are attempting to do both, how do we find a balance? And I'm not sure there's an answer here, but I'm definitely open to opinions. So maybe, Dave, if we start with you.
Or balance between business and personal?
Yeah.
It depends what you want to get out of it, I suppose. I know some people who use LinkedIn as their portfolio. They put their work on there. You can do that now, can't you? There's other people who do just treat it like a CV, and they'll direct, potential employers there, or if they're going for freelance projects, they'll just say, check out my LinkedIn. Here's an idea of what I've done in the past. For me, I mean, it's easy for me to say because I'm self-employed. My personal kind of is my business, and I'm kind of always me. Well, 95% me, apart from that 5% where I really do care. But yeah, tough one to answer. No, there's no difference for me really.
Yeah, nice. Joe, Eddie, anything to add on that one at all?
Same from me. I'd feel awkward advising anyone on how to be more corporate and get that brand across, because I think I've proved I'd be bloody dreadful at it. So, so I'm probably best to step back from this one.
Well, I mean, I think Dave's right. I think on LinkedIn, something I've learned is that the most successful posts about business are relatively personal. And so it's helpful to lean into that, because at the end of the day, whether we're at work or whether we're at home, we're all people and we're all human. Everybody has emotions no matter where we are. And so you can share those experiences at work as a individual, as a person. And I think that you'd be rewarded for it and commended for it, because showing that vulnerability and relating to people is never really inappropriate or out of style, I think.
I love that. And that actually kind of answers the next question from Edith, who asks about oversharing on LinkedIn. So people, I can see Joe like, giggling at this point. So like, I feel like I got to pick on you a little bit, to be fair here, Joe. Speaking about, so the context was, announcing family bereavement, sharing health journeys, battles, etc. What was your opinion on oversharing? Is it good to stay personal or stay clear?
Okay, so as soon as you said the word overshare, I thought, oh, he's coming to me then, isn't he? So I share kind of like the warts and all, but I've always got it in my head. What I said at the beginning, I always want to make people laugh and make people think. So if I share something like, some argument I've had, or something that's gone wrong or gone tits up, rather, that'll probably be the language I'd use. I like to share it because I think it'll give people a bit of a giggle, maybe make them feel better about a similar situation that has gone wrong for them. So I'd like to do that. But I do see a lot of people oversharing, like, from hospital beds and stuff like that. And, they're telling you they're down to their last kidney and, and then they've got some bloody thing at the bottom saying, so if you need any recruitment solutions for your business, make sure you catch me in the next 2 weeks when I'm recovering. And that's the sort of stuff that I hate. I think either do a business post or don't. Don't shoehorn in a business post to something hugely personal where there's no link. But also as well, that kind of like that negative stuff, like, being on your deathbed or being at a funeral and doing some bloody LinkedIn live from it. My God, even I've got my limit for that, because you do see people posting saying like, I am at a funeral at the moment, and I can't believe I've seen stuff like that. But for me, that's the kind of oversharing that's not going to bring anyone anything. Those people are doing it purely for likes and sympathy and to gain something, and I don't like that. I always like to think that there is something else that people can get from my content. So so that's why I share like the time when the cat shat on our bed and stuff like that, because I thought, who wouldn't laugh at that?
Absolutely. I love that answer. Thank you, Joe. I think you're spot on. There is a line, but I think it goes back. I feel like we've made the point quite a lot in this session, which is just about authenticity, but without looking to shoehorn it. And really, that's really so important. I'm going to pre-warn you here. There's a question which I'm going to ask all three of you, which is your top 3 things I should know about creating great LinkedIn content. So that will be coming to you after this question, which is from Maria and asking about video. In fact, sorry, I'm going to take a step back and do a different one because video is very specific, but I want to ask about regularity of posting, because I think this is something that will probably be running through people's minds quite a lot. So Eddie, how often do you post, and is there any significant sort of like strategy behind it, or is it more just like when inspiration strikes?
I think if I go back, and on average it'll probably be 5 times a week, something like that. There are some weeks where I post 7 times a week, and then there are some weeks where I don't post at all. But I think on average it's about 5 times a week, and really it's a lot of my posts have been, I have a stockpile, I guess, of posts. Before I even ever started posting on LinkedIn, I had probably 150 or more posts that I had written. So by no means are you supposed to be cranking out five posts a week, and if it's too, that it's a lot if you don't have them already prepared. But I think the more you post, the more that exposure is going to compound. So
nice. I like that. And actually, when you say 150 posts, presumably was that blog posts that you had waiting and then you repurposed, or did you have 150 LinkedIn posts that you'd written?
No, yeah. Sorry, I should have specified. So, I mean, very good copy. I mean, I've been working on that site probably 6 or 7 years, and so I've written a lot of posts, but they were all 500, 600, 700 words, so they weren't going to fit into a LinkedIn post. And then when COVID hit and everybody was quarantined, I was like, man, like I don't, I have more time on my hands. I can repurpose these posts into LinkedIn content. And so I would take these like 500, 600, 700 word posts and rewrite them to be 1,300 characters. And that was actually a lot more fun for me than actually writing them. Like editing them down was a good exercise for me. So I enjoyed doing it, and that's how I was able to post so often.
Nice.
Because they were already there. Yeah.
No, that's great. And Dave, you seem to post quite regularly, but maybe it's just because your stuff goes to the top. I don't know. So what do you do?
Yeah, I'm in with the LinkedIn people to force my post to the top. I pay them 200 quid a month. Sounding it. No, similar to Eddie, really. It's probably I don't do any on the weekend normally. Normally just Monday to Friday. I'll post maybe one a day. Sometimes I'll skip a day, usually between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's when kind of people are getting to work, aren't they? Maybe checking their phones in the morning or whatnot to get those kind of initial likes, which are crucial if you want if you are focused on hitting that algorithm and getting your post to hit the big likes and share figures. But for me, it's I don't sit there and go, oh, I've got nothing to post and ruminate over it. It's just like, if I've got something prepped, it'll go out. If I've got nothing for 3 days and I'm too busy with client work, I'll just skip it for 3 days. There's no sweat really. I don't try and force things. What Eddie just said, spot on. It's good to be able to look back on previous stuff that you've written and just repurpose it. Maybe you've got, if you've written a blog post, 5 ways to do this, post each one of those 5 ways Monday to Friday and go a little bit more specific on it, or take something that you've posted a year ago or whatever, and kind of rewrite it in a different way, or add an update, or there's kind of so many ways you can keep putting stuff out there. And I also don't feel pressure. I like being consistent. There's nothing I'll put out just for the sake of putting out, like Joe said before about these people who are girls putting stuff out about just to get sympathy and just for likes, and people are using polls now just to ask questions. Oh, what do you call this? Where you come from? The classic, bread roll. It's like, fuck off, mate. You know what I mean? How old are you? Nuts. So nowadays it's definitely more consistency, quality over quantity, and just not straight. If I haven't got anything really funny or really daft to put out, or something that I've spent ages over, I'll just put one kind of straight idea, or here's how you can make your stuff a little bit more interesting, just to kind of help people. It doesn't always have to be kind of super creative. It can just be nice and helpful sometimes.
Nice, I love that. I can't believe how quick the time's gone. So I'm going to get onto that question which I gave you the warning about your 3 top tips for.
Oh yeah, shit.
Creating LinkedIn content. So we're going to come to Dave. No, we're not. We're going to go for.
I've got them there.
Nice. Let's go for Eddie first, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so the top 3 things
Mhm.
keep in mind. Well, I think first of all, don't assume that people know what you know. Like I think it's really easy to convince yourself that your knowledge is common knowledge. But I think time and time again, I've noticed that people respond really well to information that I kind of take for granted. And I think that's just like the curse of knowledge, and everybody is cursed if they're in a discipline. So just remember that like what you know isn't what the majority of people know. So don't be afraid to post the basics or the fundamentals in your mind, I guess. Another thing that's worked for me is topping and tailing my articles with dialogue. Because usually I'll be having a conversation with someone, or I'll be watching a conversation on TV, and then in the middle of it I'll have an idea, or I'll be reminded of a principle or a technique. So I'll just write it that way. I'll write it exactly as it happened. I'll start with dialogue, then I'll cut to the lesson or the concept, and then I'll end with dialogue. And then I guess I would say probably go heavier on the story whenever you're writing, and easier on the marketing message. So if you have a 1,300 word, or 1,300 character post, use 1,200 of those characters to tell the story and engage people, and then maybe use 100 of those characters to deliver the lesson. And then it's a little punchier.
Nice. Thanks, Eddie. Joe?
Okay, top 3. Make sure you've got a good, strong headline, because whenever you post or whenever you comment, which is just as valuable in putting content out there, commenting on other people's content, getting involved in a conversation, your headline is going to come up, or at least the first few words of it are. So for God's sake, tell people what you do. So a lot of people tend to go with some kind of like snazzy strapline that they think makes them edgy and cool, and invariably it just makes them look the same as everyone else. So that people will say, I save you time, money, and stress. And you think, okay, right, if someone tells me they're saving me time, money, and stress, I'm going to go ahead and assume that they're going to adopt my daughter, because she is the one thing that contributes to all of those issues. So if I sign into a contract with that person and it turns out they're a bloody accountant, I'm going to be really fucking pissed off. So tell people what you do in your headline, ideally with the main thing at the start. So at the start of mine, it says writer. So no matter what I then go on to say, to try and make myself sound cool or whatever, people know I'm a writer. So that's number 1. 2, a bit like the guys have already said, don't be posting stuff just for the sake of it. If you've not got something to say, why say it? Also, there's that fear that like if I see someone's posting every 10 minutes, I go ahead and assume they've got no clients, and that they can't be very good at what they do because they've got way too much time to spend on social media. So there's that. And your third one, I would say, think about what the content you're about to share offers to the person who's going to read it. Is it going to make them laugh? Is it going to give them some information? Is it going to give them a message? Is it going to point them in the direction of where to go, like your website, your mailing list, a product or service you're selling, if that's what you want to do? If the answer to that question is it doesn't do anything for people, but it just gets me likes, don't bloody post it, because it ain't about you.
Amazing. Man, it ain't about you. Isn't that just a life thing?
Yes.
And just to close off, Dave, I feel like we could go on for, like there's so much here, but Dave, could you close this out with your 3?
Yeah, what the last one Joe just said there is absolute nail on the head stuff. At no point should you ever be starting your posts with "We are delighted to announce" or "We are proud to reveal." If that's your opening line, people just think this has got nothing to do with me. This is all about the person posting it, and they just go and scroll past. So if you can take that, flip it. Like I wrote a post recently, 8 alternatives to "We are delighted to announce," and the opening one was like, you should really be sitting down for this. And then they got increasingly kind of edgy, whereas the last one was, "Oh my fucking God," with a load of emojis. But I mean, it's gonna capture people's attention. Obviously, it doesn't work for B2B. But then for that one, I got probably another Colin classic. oh, this isn't really appropriate for my baking solutions. Just telling me it's hypothetical. Give me a break. I'm just giving you some tips. Go easy on me. So that's the first one. Don't make it all about you at the start. The second one is something I try and do anyway, is drop a little bit of your dialect into to whatever you're writing. So I'll say sound for good. I'll say nice one instead of thank you. I'll say, not bad instead of idiot. Little things like that, which just again gets the kind of nuances of your authentic voice in. And the last one, I always try and leave with some kind of punchline. Doesn't have to be a joke punchline, by the way. Just some kind of sweet spot. If they're going away, having learned something, having laughed, having just gone, that was funny. You've made them feel something. If you can make them feel something, job done. That's it.
I love that. Thank you so much. Honestly, as I said, I don't know where this hour has gone. I mean, it's absolutely flown by, and I'm really sorry that there's just so many open questions. I mean, maybe what I'll do, Joe, Dave, and Eddie, I'll send you the questions that are left over, and you can do with them as you wish. You've probably got enough LinkedIn content for the rest of time there, or maybe we can also try and find a way to manage it through the marketing meetup as well, if you guys would be up for it. Nonetheless, our hour's up, and I'll be respectful for people's rest of the day. So thank you all so much for taking the time and sharing your experiences and your opinions. Honestly, there's been just a phenomenal amount of information there. Hopefully a lot that's personally enriching, but also professionally informative. So, thank you for that. And also thank you to everyone for watching and these comments coming in right now. That's for you three. That's for everyone watching in today. It's been a proper team effort. So thank you all so much. Every week is an absolute joy, and to share it all with you is brilliant. So thank you. My one quick ask is, if you do take the time, please do thank the sponsors. It goes a long way for the marketing meetup, to keep on doing what we're doing. But in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely rest of your Tuesday afternoon, or Tuesday morning, indeed, for you, Eddie. Thank you all. Absolute thrill. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.